got to help me. I can't do it all by myself. No, you got to help me, baby.
I spoke briefly about the Inspector General's office being an independent entity that actually reviews and audits the department's work on the complaint process, on use of force, and we provide input to the commission, which is the civilian panel that oversees the department. My body, the investigators underneath me do not work for the department, do not report to the department. The department can't tell us to stop anything, they can't tell us to start anything. We are completely independent. We provide our information and get our input from the police commission. So to give you a little bit of background, the captain talked about use of force and the complaint process, and talked a little bit about how things are worked through the system and how seriously they're taken by the department. The department has, the Professional Standards Bureau has a pretty robust investigative body. There are individuals outside of this area. Their sole mandate is to investigate misconduct from officers and evaluate those things. And that process is regularly audited by my office. And we usually get involved in the high risk areas in cases such as this, and we monitor those cases all the way through the process from the cradle to the grave to make sure that things are being done correctly, that items are being investigated the way they need to be done, that there's no items that are missed. And what we do as we go through that process is we continually brief the commissioners so they know what's going on, so they know the status of the investigation at every turn. And the commissioners actually last Tuesday, had ordered my office to actually get involved, to look at the investigation all the way through the process, and then report back to them the findings. So if there's any deficiencies in the investigation, if there's any problems with the investigation, I'm identifying actually moving them out and actually bringing the commission so that they can have input in that. So to give you an explanation of what's going on, there are actually 2 investigations going on right now. I believe there's a complaint that's making its way through the process. And what that does is it goes into Professional Standards Bureau, which are charged. These are individuals that are charged with reviewing any constitutional policing issue, racial profiling, any kind of racial bias, and they're trained specifically to do that. And what they do is they will work that investigation up, not officers from this department or this division. They will work that through, and they will put together a body of information that will later be reviewed by my office and audited by my office on things. And we will be looking at kind of a quality control. And what my office also does, if there are issues, racial profiling, if there are constitutional issues, if there's anything else, whether it be this particular case or a pattern, what we do is provide an open report, our review of the issues that we see. And if anybody wanted to see an example of the work we do, they can look at the Commission's website. It's a public report. And we basically call them as we see them. We call balls and strikes. That's it. We don't work for the department. What we do, and our mandate, is to get it right. And make sure that there is transparency, make sure that things are properly being investigated, and make sure if there is a deficiency, if there's some issue in the department, that there's a light shine on it, and that's us corrected. And we don't hide anything. What we do is actually our office will expose things. So if we see deficiency in the process, the first thing we will do is bring it to the Commission's attention. If we see there's a problem that's not being addressed, we'll put it in a public report so that the public sees it, so everyone else sees it, so the Commission and everyone has an opportunity to comment on it. So the commitment of this department for doing constitutional policing, and I think they have a very robust process, but we are an added layer on top of that. They can't control, that they can't regulate, that they can't stop, and we'll look at these processes and follow it all the way through to make sure that, hey, this witness is being invested, this witness is being interviewed, this fact is being looked at. These problems are actually being identified. Because the big problem is you don't want to have any case where there's an investigation that's deficient, meaning you're not asking the right questions, or you're sweeping something under the rug, or you're doing any of these other things that affect public confidence. The reality is they have a very strong process in place, and we're an added layer on top of that to make sure that the right thing's done. And to the department's credit, I think in a couple of months ago, the department actually investigated officers for racial profiling, and then went through the process of firing that person. And they did an incredibly robust investigation in there. And we had, like I explained here, we had the input along the whole way. We were briefed, We had comment. We went all the way through the discipline process where we had a seat at the table, and the department was very open and receptive to our viewpoint. So it gives you kind of, it's a complicated system, but I'm just trying to let people know that there are mechanisms, there's checks. It's not just the department doing an investigation. And then you ask yourself, well, if you did something wrong, how can you be investigating this now? Well, how can you be seen as investigating the matter and be doing a thorough and good job on that? Well, there's a system in place for that, because people identify that issue, and that is Professional Standards Bureau, people away from this department. And then the city, in creating my office, created an extra layer, a watchdog. It isn't responsible for the department that's get pushed around or told what to do. It's only responsible for police action. So that's a snapshot, a layer of review that we do. And I'd be more than happy, and if there are other questions that come up, I'll be more than happy to go into more detail.
Is there a website for the report that you sent to the public?
I can't tell you the website offhand. If you Google, there's anything with Los Angeles Police Commission, it'll pop up. And when you pop up on that site, it'll have a link to public hearings and also to the reports. So what you'll see is an agenda. Every Tuesday, the commission has an open meeting, it's open to the public, and they review various items, not just use of force or auditing or constitutional policing, but any number of things, and it's done in a very open forum. If you were to go to that site, Google it, get into that site, it will give you not only a link to the last 15 or so videos for the commission, it will also give you the agenda. You can go on the agenda and see what the commission's talking about, what they're looking into, and you'll see reports from my office. You'll be able to click on it and get a better idea of what my office does. So it just so people kind of have an understanding of the freedom that my office has. If anyone's looked into the news and looked at things online today, they've probably seen that my office actually has done a report and called the department out on some things, some investigations that needed to be done a different way, and actually got those items reopened. So if you want to take a temperature of what the Inspector General's office is, I'd encourage you to go to the website, click on the links, look at it, and get a flavor for what we do, and that'll probably give you a better understanding of the level of oversight that my office is able to do. Just so you have an understanding, too, of the expertise that we have involved. We have 40 people in my office, and about 80% of those people review complaints and audit the complaint system and deal with use of force in the department. So the vast majority are looking at those particular issues.
I think what's important here is information on the process and how to access the information. One of the things in the Community Police Relations Board that we are wanting to pull together, and it's really up to you and other people in the community if we're successful or not. What I know from working in Venice and Santa Monica, and I go way back, Project Action, anybody remember Project Action? I wrote the grant for Project Action. It was a kind of a fluke. People said, well, this was right after the Watts riot, as a matter of fact, in 1966, and people said we need to do something in Venice, and so I always was passionate about things that I wanted to say and believed in, so they said, so write it down. And we wrote it down, and we got what we call the Summer Crash Program funding, where the Department of Labor funded a program in Venice because they didn't want to have the same kind of flare-up in Venice that had been experienced in Watts. And so we got the program funded, and it's what was Washington then, but it's Abbott Kinney now. We had a little storefront building there where we started Project Action. And Project Action received funding for job training, for how to fill out applications, for interviews, and also we worked in the community to find out what the community wanted. So we did a community action plan. And during that time, we actually had people go knock on door to door and do surveys and ask people, what would you like to see happen in Venice? And that actually was the genesis of those 15 apartment buildings. The low-income apartment buildings came about as a result of Project Action petitioning the federal government for low-income housing in the Venice community. So together as a group, there is empowerment, and things can happen, and things can change, and things can be the way that you would like them to be. But if you're not united, if you remain, what's my word? Voiceless and...
Oh, voiceless and...
I know.
Voiceless and invisible.
That's right. So we don't want to remain voiceless and invisible. We have to be heard and we have to be seen.
My question to Captain and the other officers is the status of these officers. We want to know, the community wants to know, have these officers been removed? Are they placed into another part of the city? The status while this investigation is going on, the people of the community want to know. Certainly when people violate run lights, they get tickets, immediately reprimanded. We want to know if these officers have been reprimanded for the abuse that they put on this young man.
I was at a meeting yesterday with Chief Beck, Chief McCarthy, and several others as it relates to the incident. And because it is a personnel matter, there's a formal complaint that has been initiated against the officers. There's just a lot, for those of you that own businesses understand, it's an employment issue, the employee rights, so I can't talk about that investigation. I can tell you that Chief McCarthy and Chief Beck talked specifically about that, but I'm not privy to those conversations. So the officers, again, were not assigned to Pacific Division. They're assigned to Chief McCarthy at the Bureau, and so that's a personnel matter related to specifically for her and Chief Beck. So I don't know the answer to that question if they've been removed. They are not, VC, or the Violent Crime Task Force has not been back to Venice since that incident, I can tell you that.
What we do know is that we're familiar with Pacific Division and the Venice Police Department. And so Venice is sort of like your house, so to speak. So when others come into your house or your territory, then they should know more about the culture and the people that are in the community. And they should at least be under your direction or your supervision, or at least have some relationship with you besides just coming in marauding and then leaving the community.
That's what they do.
And so I would ask that for the Venice Police Department, for the Pacific Division, that you all are the ones that we look to make sure that the things that you said to us earlier are in fact true, and that in fact do happen. So for this group that comes in and leaves on Saturday and leaves havoc behind them, that's not acceptable. And so to put it in simpler terms, it's your house. We expect you to have other people be respectful of your house, and that the people that live in your house are treated with respect and equitable and fairness. And one of the things that we have on our list is that enforcing all laws equally across the board. And you said that the Venice Police Department does that, but those people don't know us. You guys do, and so we're expecting that you represent us to that group of officers that come in here, because they are LAPD, they are special forces. Someone asked them to come in here for some reason. Havoc and to have the community people here disrupted and people beaten, and they go on about their business and come back a week later and do the same thing. So we just want to make sure.
Message heard loud and clear. I certainly hope that nobody in the community believes or thinks that my comments are trying to suggest that I'm not taking personal responsibility for what happened, because again, I am one of the commanding officers of Pacific Division. What I can tell you is, let me finish and then absolutely. What I can tell you, we have a lot of specialized units that sometimes come in here. We do narcotics by bus. Many of you have seen our horses come in here and do patrol. I do speak to the supervisors assigned all these units. They understand our expectations as a command as it relates to constitutional policing. But again, that goes across all commands within the LAPD is the expectation. Specifically on the days that they do come, it's my expectation that they not only check in with the watch commander, which would be Sergeant Parks if he's working, and Lieutenant Creed, who's in charge of the Oakland Venice Task Force, because we want them to understand what's going on. We give them specific direction on things that we want done. And so please don't take that because they don't work for me. I'm trying to pass off that responsibility, because ultimately it is my responsibility, because it is our community that we're policing.
Thank you, Captain. I see it's 7:30. Pastor Davis has charged us with responsibility for the time, and we do have some other issues that we want to talk about. We have Attorney Crump here. I want to give him a few minutes to talk, but I also want us to be aware of the time frame. Understand that this is not the last meeting. The next meeting, I want to see as many people or more here. This is a movement. This is not an incident. Okay, so what I'm saying is that if we are serious about the business of harmony and peace and coexistence in the community, and that we are treated equitably and we are treated fairly across the board, then all of you, your picture was taken when you came in the door, and if I have to come and get you for the next meeting, I know where you live. So we do need to talk a little bit about the Oakwood issue so that we can address that. And again, don't forget that I want you to sign up for one of the 3 committees, or all 3, if you have that kind of time. But Attorney Crump, can you come up and take just a few minutes to speak to the group?
I come here with Ronald Weekley Jr., who really wants to address some questions to Captain Johnson, but as his attorney and I said that right now he has been charged with a felony based on what we saw in that videotape, and so I had to advise him he shouldn't say anything, but it does go to the crux of the matter based on all the witness accounts that have been reported to us, and we have statements that we're going to provide to Internal Affairs, as well as what we saw in that video with our eyes. What did he do to be charged with a felony conviction? That is the question that everybody is scratching their head when they look at that video. Or is it because, as he and his family believe, this is some Gestapo tactic being held over his head to say, if you don't admit you did something wrong, we're going to charge you with this felony conviction. And that is a big issue here that he wanted to ask you, but I said I would ask for him. And I hope that you can address that, and you can tell us when. And Ms. Campbell, I will be respectful of the time. Thank you all for allowing the Weekley family to be here. Thank you all for standing with them while they try to seek some kind of answer. The questions that his and his family have very specifically, and if you can answer them, we'll appreciate it. If not, if you can tell us when they can be answered, that would be greatly appreciated, not just for his family, but anybody who cares about justice. First of all, why was Ronald confronted and assaulted? He and his father were given 2 different reasons that really seem to be pretextual. And I know some of the community here expressed that they thought it was racial profiling. Well, they believe it was racial profiling as well.
Yep.
Yes.
Right.
Order, please. I will not have people yelling out. Thank you.
Who was the LAPD officer who was punching him in the face while he was handcuffed and subdued that we saw on the videotape? Number 3, as Minister Davis just asked, will he be suspended while the investigation is ongoing or until the investigation is concluded? Number 4, when will we believe were trumped up charges be dropped against Ronald Weekley Jr.? Why was Ronald Weekley Jr. denied medical treatment for almost 6 hours until he signed a document that he told him he did not want to sign until his father and his family came there? But they told him he would not see a doctor until he signed this document.
That is terrible.
Why was Mr. Ronald Weekley Sr. sent to 4 different facilities trying to find his son after this happened, and at the scene, Pastor Weekley came from a church which is 3 blocks away to see his son, saw him in the car calling out for him, but was denied access to him. And when he got there, verbatim both Pastor Weekley and Ronald said that the captain told him to get the car out of here. And that seems to be an extraordinary thing when you watch what happened in that video, while you went there, his father, his niece, made contact with him while his nose is bleeding, he's coughing up blood. And lastly, and I guess really what really gets to the crux of the matter, Captain Johnson, how can you explain to the Weekley family if they can have trust and faith that this won't happen to him or somebody else in his community that looks like him, based on what we saw to that video? And those are just questions we have. I won't make a speech or anything. I just want to pose those questions because that's what we really want, is the truth. Mainly, when will these bogus charges be dropped? And this guy who was punching him in the face, who is it, and is he going to be suspended?
All right, all right.
On behalf of everyone in this room, for the Weekley family, we do stand behind you.
I think it's important for you to understand. I'm going to try to put this in a little bit of context for everybody, and I said this at our second meeting actually at the BNC. These types of investigations that are being conducted by Internal Affairs are very methodical, are very time-consuming, and there's due process that has to be dealt with as we're going through that investigation. I can tell you the use of force investigation, as well as the personnel complaint related to the charges of biased policing, have been consolidated. Okay, so what that means is the department has moved that entire investigation with Professional Standards Bureau. And that was done for a number of reasons. I think it's important, again, as we talk about the openness, the transparency, the confidence of the community, those decisions were made, and so Professional Standards will be conducting that investigation. Just to set the record straight, these investigations take a lot of time. And I can tell you, you're not going to like this, but and Mr. Bustamente will probably tell you that this is the reality. It's going to take probably 6 months. These investigations are very complex. And I can just tell you, based on my experience, I understand the department is going to try to move this as quickly as they can because I think it's important to the community. But I think it's important for you also to understand that no stone will be left unturned. And so if that takes the investigators on an interview list of multiple residents, each and every one of them has to be interviewed. So when you talk about coordinating schedules, conducting the interviews, putting this whole investigation, I'm just trying to be as honest as I can with you about the time frame.
6 months, 8 months, we gotta speak, not just them people up there.
Okay.
That's it. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, you're going to speak, but I will also remind you that we want resolutions. So if you want a forum to speak, that's fine with me. But at the same time, we want to get to a point of how are we going to get to a point of resolution for whatever your concerns are. Okay, so let me allow Mr. Bustamente to speak, and then we'll open it up, and I'll ask Stan Mohammed to lead the Q&A. All right.
I just wanted to address quickly on the investigation. I know when people hear the time period, they're thinking, why can't this be wrapped up in 2 weeks, a week? Why can't it be done quickly and then reported on? I give you a little perspective just from being a prosecutor for 10 years and also looking at these issues in my capacity as the IG. The reality is in order to do a good investigation, one that's thorough, one that doesn't cover things up, one that looks at everything, examines all issues, that needs to be done systematically. That means that you need to go through every issue, ask all the relevant questions, look at all the documents, the videos, talk to everyone that you can to examine all the issues. So if you want a thorough investigation, one that looks at all of the issues, you're going to want one that's deliberate, that is not speeding up to come to some kind of conclusion. And that's what my office looks at. I mean, the first thing that I look at when there's an investigation like this, if it's going quickly, I've got a problem with that. Because I want to make sure everything is done the right way. And everything is looked at the right way. And people that need to be interviewed are interviewed. Because my concern is something slipping through the cracks. My concern is something's not done the right way, and then we have to come back 4 or 5 months from now because we weren't slow in the way we did this, and then try to reconstruct it. So as unpalatable as it is, as bad as it might be that it sounds 6 months, the reality is you're going to want the department to do a thorough investigation on it, and you're going to want me looking over the department's shoulder, making sure it's a good investigation. That, I think, should be the priority. The priority should be a thorough investigation that looks at every single issue, talks to all the relevant people, and does not leave a stone unturned. I think that should be the priority, and that's at least the priority from my office when we look at investigations and we audit. To give you a little background on the prosecutors, just to talk to you briefly, that's going to be a decision that's out of his control, the department, that's actually in the DA's office. So a decision whether to prosecute, not prosecute, that's in the district attorney's office and not the police department.
But could the police not put forward charges because they have to do it with the DA?
They regularly do investigations and provide paperwork, all the time of cases that get dismissed, don't go forward. It's ultimately up to me. If it isn't with the DAs, it's a different story. Okay, so what I understood was when you were talking that it was already with the DA and they were already indicting with felony. I just don't know the facts.
And I'll make it simple. His father, he was given when he was released from jail, a thing from the arresting officer saying, you have to be in court to be charged with this felony on the 13th of September. What happened? So we don't think it's back to the DA yet. So we're saying the LAPD, and his father said, where's the probable cause? And so why can't we stop this now?
I just want to say that
6 months to investigate a video case.
just 1 second. I just wanted to say that 45 minutes after my son was taken away, I was directed by Sergeant Jeter to go down to the Pacific, which is where my son would be. And they indicated to me that my son wasn't there, but the arresting officer was there. It was me and my daughter together. The arresting officer came out. I won't give his name, you know who he is already. But my question to him was a very simple question. I said to him, I know that you have a hard job to do, and I appreciate that. But what was the probable cause for you stopping my son? He looked at me and said, cause? I said, yes, probable cause. He says that we observed your son skateboarding on the wrong side of the street. Okay. Now, and I know that as this process continues, probable cause will become something else. But I just think that it's important to state that your first representative to the father of the victim was told that probable cause is that my son participated in the very culture of Venice. The very culture of Venice. We skateboard on all sides of the street. And so it's not the argument of whether there's an ordinance against it. The question is if there is, then why did it start being enforced wrong? Is that's really my question.
The city officials is not going to be able to respond to us properly tonight. So what we're hoping that we can do, like Naomi had said, we're going to have a series of meetings, a series of deliberate dialogue until we get to the solutions. Because we can stand here all night and hear the problem, and the more of the problem we hear, the more emotional we're going to get. Because at the end of the day, a young brother was beat up by the police. So obviously, they're not going to be able to respond to us properly tonight. So what we want to do at this point, we want to look at, show the hands of those who want to ask a question. No comment, just a question. I'm going to start with my H.E.L.P.E.R.
Got to help me. I can't do it all by myself. No, you got to help me, baby. I can't do it all by myself.